Hello and welcome to the next video in my series about the Dark Eye core rules. I'm going through the German PDF of the rules, and I'm basically showing you what's inside. And we're now in Kapitel 6 Profession, which means chapter 6 professions. And a profession is something like a class or something. You are a warrior, you're a warrior, you are a mage, you are a thief, you are a priest. That is a profession. And profession is, on one hand, the most important thing you choose during character creation, because the most value changes and abilities come with the profession. All the talent values and stuff are given to you by the profession, or the majority of it. But on the other hand, it's quite unimportant, because you don't have to choose a profession. You have to choose a species for your hero, you have to choose a culture for your hero, but you don't have to choose a profession. You can just buy whatever skills you want for your hero and then label that a thief or a bard or a magician or something. There is an exception. If you play in a spellcaster or if you play in a priest of a god, then you have some hard set limitations by the rules, because when you're a spellcaster you also have to buy a tradition, and the tradition basically tells you have been a formally educated magician at a mage academy or something, and you know how to cast magician spells, and you can only cast a very limited selection of spells from elves or witches or druids or something like that, and you can only raise those foreign spells from witches to a certain skill level. You can get past this, you can learn another tradition during play when you're leveling your character up, but it's very expensive. But then in theory you can do that, and then you can basically learn whatever you want from any school of magic, from any tradition. The same with priests. When you're a priest of a certain god, you will only choose abilities or spells, liturgies that are within the ideal of that god and not opposed to that god, because there are gods, for example, and liturgies with opposing for opposing gods, because there's a god that really dislikes magic, and there is a god of magic, a goddess of magic. So they are not always the liturgies they can cast are not always appropriate for each other. And these are the only limitations when you have. You can in part you can get past these during play. For other non-spellcasters and non-priests, you can basically build whatever character you want. You can, in theory, go and take a thief and then raise his ability to use a two-handed sword, and you can give him the ability to ignore armor penalties and stuff like that, things that usually only a warrior would have. You can do that. The only problem is how you justify this regarding the background of your character. Where did he learn these skills? But technically, purely seen from the rules, there's no rule that forbids that. So, but now let's flip through the professions that are in here. The professions are mostly useful to give you an idea what you can play and to make creating character quicker, especially the non-priest and non-spellcaster professions, because you just have to note down what is written down here, and you don't have to come up with everything on your own. Before I go through these lists, I just skip through them and show you and tell you what professions are in there. I'm not going to explain a lot about them. Before I go through the list, let me explain how they are described and what is technically given to you when you read this. First, there is a description of the profession to explain you what this person does for a living, and maybe what kind of variations there are, because this is a bard, and you know a bard, but there is a special kind of bard, and it gives you a selection Down here, these are the values for a bard, the skills and all stuff, and these are two variations of them. I think one is you are not a bard, you are basically a storyteller. Yeah, and maybe a mix of bard and storyteller. And the last is you are a bard of the northern Thorwalian culture, which means you have a certain meaning what you do within your culture. You have a special role within your culture when you're a bard of the Torvala, of the Thorwalians. So and yeah, that is basically how this is structured. So you have you have a box where all the hard numbers are in, which are associated with your character, which you have to note down, and you have a text that describes the profession. The first profession is a bard. Next profession is a guardsman. The next profession is kind of a juggler, as you can see, someone who's working on a fair or something like that. There are different variations of the, as you can see. A gladiator, that is usually only common in rather common in southern Aventuria. In the Caribbean influenced territory, the Caribtic, there they have really gladiators and gladiator arenas. Else you could be like a fighter who does a show on a fair or something. That is also common in other parts of Aventuria. Then the merchants, I don't think I have to explain a lot about them. There are different kind of merchants depending with what you're trading or something, and what culture you're trading. But I think it is pretty self-explanatory. Different kind of healers and Höfling. Oh, these are people, noblemen possibly, who live in the castles and hanging around the kings and stuff, and are into intrigue and such things. I don't know what the translation of Höfling is. Next is hunter. This could be any hunter, like in a civilized region, or more of a tribal hunter or something like that. Next is warrior. Warriors need probably a bit of explanation. Warrior is kind of a certain class that is has a special meaning in game. You are often trained in an academy that may be private or state founded, and you are trained to be kind of an elite fighter, and you are trained to be kind of a leader of an army or something like that. And you get in depending where you were educated, you get a certain certificate that gives you certain rights. For example, to carry certain arms that are not allowed for other people or common people or something like that. And who you can be, what kind of warrior you can be, and in what you were trained can be very different, because you have the standard warrior who is kind of a bit like a knight. He fights with swords, two-handed swords or something like that. But that is mostly common in the Midden realm or something like that. But there's also an academy in the north, in the Torvala region, so within the Vikings, and you are also trained to be an elite fighter and something, and you are trained more to wield axes and such. And you could also be a warrior who was trained in the Horasreich, which is a very advanced culture, and you would use totally different weapons, and they have a huge they have a lot of ships. There are a power on the sea, and you might be trained in the country of a sea power as being a captain, or a fighter on sea. Not a captain, but a fighter on sea. Or you might be trained as for cavalry fighter or something like that. There is a wide range of how you can be trained and what you can be as a warrior. And warrior is my translation. I don't know how they're going to call this this profession in the in the English rules. Next profession is a prostitute or variation of it. Then the knight, a pirate, or not pirate. This is a seafarer. Something can be a pirate. Then a mercenary, something like an agent, secret agent or something, and a tribal warrior. This is a tribal warrior from the south, but it could also be a warrior of the high north, of the barbarians that live in the north, in the ice region, or any tribal society that lives within, between the north and the south. And the last is Streuner. I'm not quite sure how to translate that. He can be a thief, a pickpocket, a con man, or something like that. Someone who survives whatever is necessary, and he is clearly not a lawful character. The next professions will be the spellcasting ones. I think I'll make a cut here and make a second video about the spellcasters, and maybe it will also include the priests, or I'm making another video about the priest. I don't know. We will see. So if you have any questions about professions, or maybe professions during character creation or anything else, then ask. Yeah, there are. I expect there will be more professions described, especially when regarding, for example, the warriors. I would assume, because in the old 4th edition there were a lot of academies for warriors, for example, described, and what kind of warrior you could be. There was really a huge selection. There were a dozen or more of them, which you could choose depending on region, where you were educated. Within the academy there were different kind of education you could choose and stuff like that. Maybe they bring that back. This selection of professions is quite limited, but also because you don't have to choose one, you can make up whatever you want. That is why there are not so many, and I don't know if they're going to change this with additional material. They could, because there is also a lot of description for academies and stuff, and different people who are educated, different knights and stuff like that. But I don't know if this is going to come, or if they keep it simple and the list short as it is now. So again, that's it for the normal professions. Next, spellcasters. If you have any questions so far, please comment. I try to answer. That's it for now. Bye.